How to engage. How to engage networks and ERGs is the top question I get asked without doubt. Well, one of the top questions for sure. And so today we're going to dive into how to do that on Viva Engage in particular. So I'm going to leave you with, I've said 10 tips, it's going to be more, right? And there is also a free guide that you can download. So if that's what you're here for, if you want to figure out how to drive engagement and build community actually on Viva Engage, then this is the video for you. This is the ERG strategy channel where I help you with tips, advice, practical tools, etc. for how to build sustainable, high impact employee resource groups. So if that's what you're here for, then you're in the right place. New videos every Tuesday. I'm trying my best, people. New videos every Tuesday, and I go live on a Friday morning at 8:30 UK time every Friday. I'm coming up to my 200th episode, so look out for that one. I have got to have notes because there's going to be so much content today. I need my notes to refer to. So first of all, if you're kind of here just for the free guide, that's fine, right? The TLDR, too long didn't read, head down into the description. There will be a link there, but basically the link is ergleader.com/resources. Okay, or is it ergleadersummit.com? Can't even remember my own website. ergleader.com/resources. ergleader.com/resources. You will see a link there to download so you can tell this is not AI, right? To download the free guide that we produced that is going to go into way more detail than I can cover today. It's going to include the roles, the key roles that you need, some house rules that you can pin at the top of your Viva Engage community, and then some content ideas. So there's like 30 odd prompt ideas that you can use based on research and science. Okay, it's the accountant in me, my finance brain. I love things that are based on evidence. Right, so let's get into this. Why is engagement such an issue? Here's the thing, right? Just a little bit of tough love before we get into Viva Engage. From my perspective, I see a lot of networks asking me about engagement, and the issue isn't really engagement. The issue is what they're doing. Typically, right, it's two things. It's either what they're doing, as in the things that they are doing just are not hitting the mark in terms of having impact or benefit to the members, and secondly, so sometimes they're doing the right things but they're not able to communicate them or share the stories of what's happening, so people just don't know that there are these great things going on that the networks are doing. So those are the two reasons that I see that why engagement is typically struggling. It's the network isn't doing the right things, and then secondly, the network isn't telling people about the great things that they're doing. And I don't mean the events, right? Because we know that long term events do not generally sustain engagement. Even when you have celebrity speakers, engagement can still wane. Okay, right, so what is the role of Viva Engage? It's great for building community. Obviously, it is a community building platform. It's great for storytelling. So it's great for sharing the brilliant things that the network's doing. It's great for people being able to see why they should get involved in the network. The one thing that I love about Viva Engage, it's a really good way of sharing the workload. We know that balancing day job with running a network is hard work for the co-chairs and for the committee. And actually, if you get Viva Engage right and you get other people involved, it can actually help with the workload. So it takes the pressure off the committee. It's also, for that reason, actually, it's then a really good way of identifying possible successors, because you start to look at, okay, who's engaging in this community, who is giving advice, who's geeing people up, who is supporting their peers, etc. So it's got some really good benefits apart from just the engagement. So I'm going to cover sort of like 5 things in this video. First of all, I am going to talk about the free guide, and what's in it. So if you want that, you can head to ergleader.com/resources. I'm going to talk about the common mistakes that people make when it comes to ERG engagement. I'm going to talk about the key roles. This is something I think I talked about this very briefly in my video around frontline engagement, but I'm going to talk in a little bit more detail here about the key roles, and that's taken from our amazing friends at Swoop Analytics, who are the experts and official partners of Microsoft Viva Engage. So please do check them out if you want to delve further. I've then got some content ideas, and I've based this on, I used to sort of like dabble in social media right back in the day. I used to work with a marketing guru. I do have a fairly good following on LinkedIn, so I do know a little bit about what works in terms of content. And I've also delved into some of the research about what makes things go viral. So I'm going to share with you some content ideas, and then I'm going to talk about a plan. So what does your plan look like? So let's start with the mistakes that a lot of ERGs make. And when this first came on my radar, and I'll probably say this is like 2 to 3 years ago, around the time, in fact, so let me just rewind that. Yammer, which is kind of like the predecessor to Viva Engage, has been around for eons, right? So there was Yammer, and when I think back, I want to say like over 10 years ago is when I first heard of Yammer. And it was in an organization that I was running a transformation program. If you go digging down into my LinkedIn profile, you probably figure it out. And I remember even then, actually, their Yammer was dead. Like it was just tumbleweed basically most of the time. And you know, this is often the problem, tumbleweed, right? You often get tumbleweed because it's things like Viva Engage gets implemented in the company, and for the networks you just have like two co-chairs posting, and that's it. Just the two co-chairs putting things out, you know, oh, we're doing this event, oh, come to this, oh, you know, what do you think of that? And often it's just, there's not very much interaction. The other mistake, and this isn't a mistake that the network makes, but often when Viva Engage is implemented across the company or the organization, sometimes there just isn't a strategy. So often the company puts this tool in, you know, typically the comms team, and there's actually no strategy. Leaders aren't using it, so people don't even actually know whether they're allowed to go on to Viva Engage during work time. So sometimes, unfortunately, the networks suffer as a result of a really poor kind of like company and comms implementation strategy. Viva Engage isn't a broadcast tool, essentially. It's around engagement and conversation, right? And also the reality is that just because you've got the tool, that doesn't mean you're going to get engagement. And you know, the one thing that's great about Viva Engage, potentially, and this is not an advert for Viva Engage, by the way, is particularly where you have like frontline colleagues or operational colleagues who don't necessarily have access to company email or company laptop, they can download the Viva Engage app. Now, I know that in some organisations, some frontline colleagues have been reluctant to download the Viva Engage app on their personal devices because they're like, well, this is work stuff. So there's a real job to do to make this so appealing that people want it on their own phone. Okay, so that's what we're going to get into. So first of all, the free guide that's in the description, what's in that free guide? So first of all, you've got to have some clear house rules for sure, because and I do know of some companies where it has become carnage, and I don't say that lightly, but you know, there is stuff that's on there that definitely shouldn't be on there. It probably shouldn't even be on public Facebook, let alone the company's Viva Engage, right? There's potentially bordering on bullying, harassment, disrespectful language, all of those types of things. So I mean, really, this should be taken care of by the company's policy around Viva Engage. But if you're in an organisation that's kind of just chucked a Viva Engage in and there's no ground rules, you at least as a community can set your own house rules. And so within that free guide, you will see some house rules that you can pin at the top of your Viva Engage so that people can adhere to things like, you know, being kind, being respectful, and it can also potentially give them ideas in terms of what to post, right? The other thing that's in the guide is the roles. So I'll go into a lot more detail in the guide about the roles, a rota for how often they should post. There's something about frequency, who should take those roles, and some suggestions for how to do it. Some guides as to the types of things they should actually post. And then finally within that guide, as I say, lots and lots of prompt ideas based on research of what things go viral. Now, the one thing I would say is, we know that, and this is one of the reasons I have a love-hate relationship with social media, is we know that anger and uniting over a common enemy tends to do really well in algorithms, because that's how we're wired as people. Apparently we haven't evolved past that. So you actually gotta try really hard to kind of keep the space fairly positive, assuming that, you don't want it to be like a Pollyanna sort of toxic positivity space, but if you don't want it to descend into the sort of aggro that you get on Facebook and some of the other platforms, then you've got to, use roles and the prompt ideas to have it as a space that actually is engaging and vibrant, but it's also positive. So that's what you will get in the guide, ergleader.com/resources. So let's get into the roles. 4 key roles, which you'll have heard me talk about, borrowed from the incredible Gemma Saint, who is a director at Swoop Analytics. Please do get in touch with Swoop if your organization wants to bring them in. They do things like benchmarking. They will look at your stats. They will tell you what's going wrong. They will give you advice in terms of how to fix it. And they've got loads of free resources online as well, so please do check that out, and also some videos as well. They even do like a Viva Engage festival. I want to say like an online festival. Anyway, the 4 key roles: broadcaster, responder, catalyst, engager. Let's go through them really quickly. Broadcaster. This is the person that maybe gives announcements. So I would say typically you can either have your comms lead. If you have a comms lead in your network structure, your comms lead could take this on, or your comms lead could delegate it to 1 or 2 individuals, especially if it's a really large organization. So your broadcasters are there to announce things. Maybe they're going to tell people what's coming up in the calendar, and they are going to effectively put out kind of like those formal posts that you want people to see. They're not going to be doing a lot of this, because you don't want the feed to just be full of announcements, okay? So that's your broadcaster role. Your let's go on to your catalyst. Your catalyst, this is the kind of person who, they don't necessarily post very often. It might just be like once a month, and when they post, people tend to kind of like flock to them, right? So this typically is senior leaders. What I would say for a network, this is like a perfect role for your sponsor. So ask your sponsor maybe just like once a month to share, their reflections, what they've been up to that month, what they're hoping the network focuses on, what they've seen, the feedback that they've seen out in the field that month, right? So that's the catalyst, that's for your senior leader. Then 2 of the most important roles, right? First of all, the responder, and then the engager. The responder responds to everything, every single thing. And this isn't just one person. You need like a few people doing this, right? They respond to every post, so they make sure that they put a comment if somebody posts something. They just make sure that nothing gets unanswered. They maybe also pull in others with like an @ so they might tag other people. And the engager is there to create these interesting posts. So maybe they are the ones that you give the guide to, the prompts, and they're the ones that start some of these posts about polls and other things like that we're going to get into. And they will also comment on other people's posts as well. So really the responders and the engagers are the ones that are going to just like help to keep the community buzzing, pull other people in, etc. And again, you want multiple people. This isn't going to be just one person. So you can see there, in terms of the roles, this is really ideal for the committee, specifically, I guess, like the comms person, to delegate these out. Right, delegate them out, use a cross section of different areas, functions, departments, teams, frontline, HQ, etc., all of those kinds of things. Use it to look for like a pipeline of potential volunteers for the committee, potential successors for co-chairs, right? Use it as a way of identifying the champions within this community that can really help the network to grow and thrive, because that is one of the other challenges that networks have, is identifying volunteers and successors. So if you can get a really thriving community on Viva Engage, it's a really good way of identifying that pipeline, right, and building that pipeline. Key points about roles, I've already sort of talked about, including frontline or operational colleagues that don't have the devices. Don't stack the roles, right? Keep them separate. Like, don't give one person 2 roles. Keep them separate and have more than one person. You really don't need to have a limit on it. Okay, so let us talk about what is it that works in terms of content. Let me give you some ideas, right? Because we know that anger works, right? we're not gonna sort of target that as being our like main strategy. So I looked into, as I say, I've been sort of like dabbling with social media for a while. I actually at one stage had like a little side hustle delivering social media for clients. Would you believe? That's a whole nother story. We'll do that maybe another day. um, but some of the things that make content go viral, and this is something I've always been quite interested in, it doesn't have to be anger, and it doesn't have to be, you know, kind of like tribal. Like, okay, we hate that tribe because actually they're giving us some hostility and some grief. It doesn't have to be that. So here are some of the options. This is what works according to the research in terms of virality. So practical value, you know, save this. This is a quick guide. You know, here's a link, here's a checklist. Support, maybe that supports the front line. And I'm going to go into some specific examples. High energy, positive stories, right? So we are trying to kind of invoke some emotion. So high energy stories. We asked, you know, you asked, we changed, right? We asked, they changed. Small wins, local impact stories. Um, Urgency, so quick warnings, common problems, mythbusters, make things practical. Ask questions, right? So use polls. What would help? What should we tackle? Things about belonging, so welcome threads. So for new people that join the network and they appear in Viva Engage, having a welcome thread where somebody introduces who they are. The other thing I would say on that, pets, you know, share a picture of your pet. For some reason they are really popular, right? They just are. Like, this is something that even Swoop have talked about. So let me just give you some really specific examples on the practical posts. So save this post about benefits. So it might be benefits for carers, something about new menopause policies, domestic abuse support, bereavement, financial support, right? So those are like practical. Save this, like this is how the company helps with X, or these are the resources that you can go to for that thing. How to mini guides, right? How to swap a shift, how to request flexible working, how to book counselling, how to claim expenses, how to report an issue, whatever it be. Top 5 things that new starters don't know exist. So specific policies, leave types, well-being. What else have we got? Yeah, new starter cheat sheets, acronyms, key links, rota basics, pay dates, who does what, you know, new questions that people tend to ask when they questions that new starters tend to ask when they join, so FAQs. And then poll ideas, which polls for, you know, polls that you can put in Viva Engage. Which topic should we have next month for our book club? Or, you know, what topic should we have for our next event? Or which speakers would you like us to get in? What's one change that would make your shift easier? So those are just like some of the ideas, and all of this is in the guide. There isn't time to go through all of it, but that's why, you know, the guide is there so that you can sort of like delve into them. Pets, yeah, always possible, always really popular. Show us your commute. What's on your break table today? What's in your lunch bag? Your best tip for getting through a long shift. I love some of these. I absolutely love them. Ask us anything. Ask anything. Dealing with difficult customers. Returning after sickness. Ask anything about caring responsibilities. Caring responsibilities is something I'm going to do a whole nother video on soon, as somebody that is now caring for you know, elderly or sort of like aging parents, right? So I'm going to do a video on that soon. Insight and listing posts. What should we feedback to HR this quarter? A 1-question pulse. Do you feel you can access support at work? You know, what are the top barriers that you face? Right. So those are some of the things, you know, that you can use to kind of like just generate some engagement on Viva Engage. Just some really sort of like practical things. Right. Now your plan of attack for Viva Engage, right? How are you going to do that? Well, first of all, you're going to have a plan. You're going to have a plan, right? So this is going to help you having a plan. You are going to, first of all, set the structure. So you're going to think about what do you want Viva Engage to be used for, who's going to have access, all of those things, right? So you're going to set the structure. You are going to decide on your roles, and you're going to decide who owns it. So as a committee, this is something for you to talk about. So you're going to then decide on the structure in terms of who is going to do the activities. You are then, before you even start it, you've got to put a few posts in, right? It's a little bit like an Instagram feed. You're not going to start an Instagram with a blank grid. You're going to put at least 6, maybe 9 posts, right, in Instagram. same thing, if you're starting your Viva Engage community, just seed it with a few posts already. Obviously, you're going to have your pinned house rules, right, that you're going to get from the guide. And you've maybe got like a welcome post. You may have something else. You may have like an introduce yourself post. And you want all of the committee members as a minimum to do that, right, in the post. And you want to get the responses and everything going. Then you're going to make sure that your content is really mixed. So you want, I guess this is where your comms lead can start to really sort of like take an eye on looking at the content to make sure that it's striking the right balance, and working with the team of responders and engagers to make sure that the content is balanced. You want to link the online conversations with what's going on in the offline. So encourage people to post site visits, particularly, you know, for you as a network. And this is something I talked about with frontline engagement. You're going to be going out to frontline sites. Get people sharing photos or little videos of, you know, I went to that particular site and here's somebody that I met, you know, tag people in the post, etc. And share anything in terms of follow-up sessions. And the final thing in terms of the plan, you've got to start measuring. So once you've got enough data, you've got to start actually measuring what it is that's working, who's posting. This again is something that Swoop Analytics can really help you with, so that you can tweak it as necessary. And that's kind of it. Just be sure to go and get your free guide that is in the comments at ergleader.com/resources. I really hope you have found this useful. Good luck on building your Viva Engage communities. I think it's not easy, but I think if you set it up properly with the right roles and then some tweaks and steers as you go, it can really add a lot of value to your network. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining. I'll see you if you're going to join me on the live. The best place to join me is actually on LinkedIn at 8:30 UK time. Otherwise, there'll be a video here next Tuesday. All right, take care.